That afternoon, I did something I rarely ever do. I punched out of work early. Clara and I had been drifting apart for months, like two ships passing in the fog, and I figured a surprise might spark that old flame we'd let flicker out. I swung by her favorite little chocolate shop in downtown Seattle, grabbing a box of those fancy artisanal truffles she loved, the ones with sea salt and caramel. Then I booked us a sunset cruise on Lake Union, right where we'd shared our first kiss under the stars years ago. With hope bubbling up in my chest, I headed home, the city traffic humming around me like a distant memory. As I drove past Gasworks Park, that quirky spot near our Fremont neighborhood with its rusty industrial towers turned into green space, I glanced over out of habit, and there she was, Clara, perched on a bench with some guy I didn't recognize. Their hands were laced together, fingers intertwined in a way that screamed intimacy, not casual chat. My stomach dropped like a stone. His name, I'd learn later, was Ethan Caldwell. I pulled over, heart pounding, and approached quietly. I set the chocolates down on the bench beside them and slipped a note onto the wrapper. "Stay away tonight." Without a single word, I turned and walked back to my car, the world blurring around the edges. That evening, Clara showed up anyway, cool as a cucumber, like nothing had happened. She claimed Ethan was just a colleague from work, some big shot in her marketing firm. I called her out on it. Business associates don't hold hands like that in a public park. She dodged at first, then sighed and admitted, "It's emotional, Marcus, nothing physical. Things have just gotten complicated between us." I told her flat out she wasn't sleeping in our bed that night. Come morning, she'd have one chance to lay it all out, no more games. But the truth hit me sooner than I expected. Around 3 a.m., I heard a soft thud at the front door. Peeking out, I found a plain manila envelope on the stoop. Inside were printed emails between Clara and Ethan, flirty banter, plans for weekend getaways to the San Juan Islands, reservations at cozy bistros in Bellevue, even shared Spotify playlists full of love songs. At the bottom, a typed note. "I'm tired of covering for her. R." I didn't sleep after that. The next afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text. "Meet me at noon by the fountain in Pioneer Square. We need to talk." Curiosity won out over caution, so I went. There, waiting under the cascading water, was Rachel, a co-worker from Clara's office I'd met at a company picnic once. She looked nervous, fiddling with her coffee cup. "I've been helping them hide this for 8 months, she confessed, handing over more evidence. Chat logs, hotel itineraries, the works. Ethan was a senior manager, married to a woman named Sophia Bennett. "She deserves to know, too," Rachel said, her voice firm. "This isn't right." Later that day, Clara swung by to grab some clothes, acting like it was no big deal. I laid out all the documents on the kitchen island, the papers fanning out like a bad hand in poker. She froze, her face draining of color, then whispered, "Okay, fine. I've been seeing Ethan, but it wasn't serious, Marcus. I just felt stuck in our routine." I recorded her admission on my phone, just in case, and told her she could deal with the fallout on her own. Not long after, I mustered the courage to contact Sophia, Ethan's wife. I found her profile on LinkedIn, easy enough in our interconnected Seattle tech scene, and sent a careful message. "I think we have something in common we should discuss. It's about our spouses." She replied within the hour, suggesting we meet at a cozy bistro in Capitol Hill, the kind with exposed brick walls and soft jazz playing in the background. We sat across from each other at a corner table, nursing coffees. Sophia was elegant, with kind eyes that hid a storm of suspicion. I handed over the folder I'd compiled, emails, logs, the whole damning trail. She'd sensed something off for months, the late nights Ethan blamed on project deadlines, the sudden interest in weekend conferences. As she flipped through the pages, her composure cracked, tears welling up. "I knew," she murmured, "but seeing it's like a punch to the gut." I nodded, feeling that shared ache. She vowed to confront him that night and report the affair to HR, since it crossed professional lines at their firm. Hours later, my phone lit up with her text. He tried to deny it at first, spun some story about emotional support. But the evidence shut him down. Thank you, Marcus. This hurts, but it's freeing. I felt a weight lift, not from revenge, but from knowing I wasn't alone in the wreckage. The fallout hit fast, like a Pacific Northwest rainstorm. Ethan got demoted, shuffled to a dead-end department. Clara was pulled from major clients, her reputation whispering through the office grapevine. Friends called me vindictive, saying I should have let it go quietly. But I stood firm. Clara had built that house of cards, not me. Her texts flooded in, angry accusations one day, pleading apologies the next, bouncing between, "You ruined everything," and "I miss us. Can we try again?" When she suggested an amicable divorce, I agreed, but on my terms, fair split of assets and a signed statement admitting her infidelity, just to keep things clean. By then, Sophia and I had started checking in regularly. At first, it was about strategy, how to handle the legal mess, sharing tips on lawyers in the city, but soon our talks deepened. We'd meet for walks along the Puget Sound waterfront, the salty breeze carrying away bits of our pain. Her story mirrored mine. A marriage that started with promise but faded into routine until betrayal shattered it. "I thought we were unbreakable," she said one evening as the sun dipped behind the Olympics, painting the water gold. "But maybe this is our chance to rebuild something real." I found myself looking forward to those moments, her laughter cutting through the fog of my days. One rainy afternoon, we ducked into a bookstore in Pioneer Square, browsing shelves of poetry and novels. She pulled out a worn copy of Whitman, reading a line about new beginnings. Our hands brushed as she passed it to me, and that simple touch sent a warmth through me, like the first sip of hot cocoa on a chilly fall day. It wasn't rushed, it was gentle, a spark of hope in the ashes. Months slipped by, and I reclaimed my life. I cleared out the house in Fremont, donating Clara's forgotten things, repainting the walls a fresh blue to match the lake view. One twilight, digging through a drawer, I found an old photo from our honeymoon in Hawaii, us laughing on a beach, her eyes full of that early love. No anger rose, just a quiet goodbye. Sophia and I grew closer, sharing dreams over picnics in Discovery Park, her presence a steady light guiding me forward. I wandered back to that same bench in Gasworks Park one crisp autumn afternoon, months after the dust had settled. The leaves were turning fiery reds and golds, crunching underfoot like nature's confetti. I sat there with a thermos of herbal tea, the kind with hints of chamomile and mint that Clara used to tease me about. "Too fancy for a Seattle guy like you, Marcus." But now, it was just me, savoring the quiet, watching families picnic and dogs chase frisbees across the grass. The divorce papers had come through clean. No drama in the courtroom, just a nod from the judge in King County Superior Court, and it was done. Clara had moved to Portland, chasing a fresh start in her career, or so her last email said. Ethan? He'd faded into the background, his marriage crumbling too, but that wasn't my story anymore. I'd reclaimed my space, turning the house into a haven with new bookshelves groaning under novels and a small herb garden on the balcony overlooking the lake. Sophia and I? We'd evolved beyond those initial shared wounds. Our walks turned into weekend hikes in the Cascades, breathing in the pine-scented air as we talked about everything. Her love for painting abstracts in her Belltown studio, my secret passion for brewing craft beer in the garage. One evening, as we watched the fairy lights dance on Elliott Bay from Cary Park, she turned to me, her eyes reflecting the city glow. "Marcus, this feels like more than just healing," she said softly, her voice carrying over the hum of distant traffic. I took her hand, feeling that familiar spark ignite into something deeper, a quiet promise of tomorrows. We started small, coffee dates at indie roasters in Ballard, sharing playlists over drives to Snoqualmie Falls, where the mist rose like a veil lifting from our pasts. She laughed at my terrible puns, and I admired how she saw beauty in the ordinary. A rain-slicked street, a flock of geese overhead. It wasn't about forgetting, it was about forging ahead, two hearts mending together. One night, under a blanket of stars at a campground near Mount Rainier, we shared stories of our childhoods, her growing up in a noisy Chicago suburb, me in the suburbs of Denver with dreams of the big city. "You've given me hope again," I whispered, our fingers entwined as the fire crackled. She squeezed my hand, and in that moment, the world felt right, full of possibility. Now, as I sit here reflecting, that park bench doesn't hold pain anymore. It's a starting point for something new. Sophia's meeting me later for a stroll, and who knows? Maybe tonight we'll plan a trip to the coast, chasing sunsets like we did in our youth. Life's twists had led me here, to this gentle romance blooming amid the ruins. And for the first time, I'm grateful for the journey.